right, good morning. I am going to read another chapter to you from the book Schooled. I'm going to do chapter 24, which is from the perspective of Naomi Erlinger. And what we're going to focus on today, because reading journals, writing as you read, jotting and keeping record is important. So we're going to use a simple T-chart. We're going to focus on inferences, okay? And the reason we're going to focus on inferences is because we should, as readers, be reading between the lines and using our background knowledge to help us get a deeper understanding of the story. So when we make inferences, we usually use the text, the literal thing on the page, and then we think about that, and from what we know about the world, we interpret, we read between the lines, what else we can understand. Okay? So it's your thinking based on background knowledge. So let's see what dear Naomi has to say to us today in chapter 24. Somehow I was on the wrong page. Okay, chapter 24, Naomi Erlinger. What were we supposed to think? First, Cap gets crushed by the entire football team, and the coaches practically have to carry him to the nurse. 3 hours later, he gets decked by Daryl Pennyfield. I'm never speaking to him again. Next thing you know, he's been being taken away by an ambulance. I hadn't seen him since. Okay, for the first couple of days, nobody was surprised. Cap was absent from school. He was hurting. Who wouldn't be? Then, the weekend, the Condors game on Saturday. Well, who would blame him for blowing off that event after what the team did to him? Lena only went because she's a cheerleader, and she said it was the lousiest turnout she'd ever seen for a Condor Raiders matchup. Sea Average and Rhinecliff battled to a 3-3 tie in case you're on one of the few who cares. Serves those jerks right. Anyway, I figured I'd catch Cap on Monday. Wrong. And by Tuesday, I was getting worried. It was almost a full week since anybody had laid eyes on the 8th grade president. Okay. I was extra upset because Cap was extra special to me, but everyone was talking about it. You'd see a bunch of kids in a huddle in the hall, and you didn't have to eavesdrop to figure out the topic of conversation. Where was Cap? Why hadn't he come back yet? Could he be really hurt? The custodians were still trying to scrub his blood off the terrazzo in the corridor where the big punch had been thrown. He must have been in bad shape. What else would keep him away from what was brewing between the two of us? To be continued. I meant that. This wasn't another shallow middle school crush like the one I had on Zach. This was a relationship. And besides, the Halloween dance was on Saturday night. Cap had to realize we could never pull it off without him. When I asked Mrs. Vogel, my homeroom teacher, she replied, I don't think Camp Anderson is a student here anymore. What? She might as well have told me that the school was slated for demolition with all of us inside it. Of course he's a student. He's the 8th grade president. She looked uncomfortable. I don't want to argue with you, Naomi. I told you what I know. I'm going to ask Mr. Kazaski, I stormed. Who do you think told me? She said, not unkindly. Mr. Kazaski held an emergency staff meeting to bring all the teachers up to speed. I don't recommend that you mention Cap's name to him. He gets very emotional on the subject. So I think this is a great spot to stop and jot because of my background knowledge of what had happened earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down. I'm going to put it in quotes, and it's not because it's dialogue, but because it's exactly from the text. And I always like to record a page number. I just think that's really helpful. So this is literally what the text says, okay? I took it right word for word from the book. Now I can make an inference, my thinking based on background knowledge. And I think Kazaski, and I'm going to check his name in my book because it's an easy one to misspell. Kazaski is embarrassed because he had to tell the staff the 8th grade president spent all the school funds. And it's because of his mistake, right? So I could go into more detail, but I'm running out of board space, so I'm going to stop. But I can infer that he does not want to talk to his staff, to all the teachers, and say, yeah, so while I was at this big convention talking about how to be the most awesome principal in the universe, I let my 8th grade student rep spend the money in the student fund irresponsibly on charity events and other things that had nothing to do with what they were supposed to spend it on. Okay, so that's how we take text and we make an inference. And of course, I like to put the page number, like I said, so that if later I'm writing something for a teacher or a paper, an essay, I can go back to this page and look again and see if there's more I want to add or another reference I can use. But the dance is Saturday night. Who's going to run it if Cap isn't here? She wouldn't look me in the eye. The announcement is going to be made at lunch. The dance has been canceled. I felt like I'd been hit in the stomach with a 2x4. You can't be serious. She was serious enough to kick me out of the room. By the time I staggered into the hall, the first of the notices was being posted. Due to unfortunate circumstances, the Halloween dance has been called off. As you can imagine, the chaos was rising. There was only one middle school in Claveridge. Our neighbors had all gone there, our older brothers and sisters, a lot of our parents had attended Sea Average. There had always been a Halloween dance. They can't cancel the dance, wailed Tiffany Peterson. It's a tradition. They can, and they did, Lena said darkly. Kazaski's such a jerk. He spends the week partying at some fancy convention and then comes home to pull the plug on anybody else having fun. But it's our trademark, Tiffany persisted. The elementaries have holiday pageants. The high school has homecoming. Halloween is our thing. How can Mr. Kazaski do this to us? Zach put his 2 cents in. Kazaski isn't the problem. Since when do the teachers have much say about what goes on in this place? You're ignoring the obvious. The dance got canceled because Cap screwed up somehow. How do you figure that? asked Lena. The details are all set, and Cap isn't even here. Exactly, Zach agreed. It's his party. Where is he? I jumped on that so fast the wind should have knocked him over. Where is he? It was your precious football team that tried to put him through the crust of the earth. And don't forget the punch that leveled him was meant for you. I love that descriptive language. It was your precious football team that tried to put him through the crust of the earth. Like, that is an image there of how hard Cap was hit by the football team. He shrugged. It's not my fault Penafield's gone over the edge. Nothing's ever your fault, I snarled at him. When you couldn't use Cap as your clown, you tried to use him as your crash test dummy. I've had it up to here with you, Zach Powers. You and I are through. As rattled as I was, I took some satisfaction in the expression of total shock on his face. I laid it on even thicker. Did it ever occur to you that unfortunate circumstances might not be just a lame excuse? What if it means? Well, what could it mean? No one had the guts to say it, but it was in everybody's thoughts. Stone-faced Mr. Kazaski couldn't hear Cap's name because it made him too emotional. What unfortunate circumstances could cause that? Add in the fact that Cap had dropped off the face of the earth. Let's get to the bottom of this, Lena decided. Good old Lena. She was a tough nut, but she could be so sensible sometimes. Plus, she had tons of connections, and everybody seemed to owe her a favor. Phil Ruiz helped out around the office, so Lena made it his job to get into student records and pull Cap's file. He snuck the folder out in the kangaroo pocket of his hooded sweatshirt and showed it to us in the stairwell by the gym. This is what it contained. Nothing. No papers, no grades, no test scores, not so much as an index card. How is it possible to have an empty file? Lena demanded. It isn't, Phil told her. It should have been transcripts, transfer forms from his old school, and emergency contact information. That's what we need, I exploded. We have to contact him. This is an emergency. Don't worry, Lena said darkly. Somebody must have his address. I rode the same bus as Cap, but my stop was before his, so I had no idea where he got off. We couldn't find anyone who knew which house was his. Then, at last, a breakthrough. Olivia Weintraub had a brother who had once dated a girl named Sophie Donnelly. He had talked about a long-haired 60s type staying with the Donnellys. It could only have been Cap. Lena and I took Cap's bus after school and found the right house, a well-kept split level on a sunny side street. Just the thought that he lived and slept there made me feel warm inside. I was positive we had the right place. This is it, Lena confirmed, 191 Rockcrest. As we marched up the walk to the front door, the window of a car parked in the driveway whispered open. A very pretty high school girl leaned out and called, "Something I can do for you?" "Does Cap Anderson live here?" I asked anxiously. "No." She started to roll the window up again. The passenger door opened and an older lady got out. "You girls are too late. Cap is no longer at this address." You could hear she was choosing her words carefully. "Well," Lena persisted, "can you tell us where he is now?" "I'm afraid that's not possible." "But why?" I wailed. "We really need to talk to him." The daughter lowered her window again. "My driving test is the day after tomorrow. We're busy." "Sorry, girls," the mother added. "I'm sure you're just friends with the best of intentions, but a lot of things have happened and I'm not at liberty to talk about." She got back inside and shut the door. "Can you give us his phone number?" I begged. The teenager gave me an odd smile. "Where he is, they don't have a phone." They drove away, leaving us standing on their doorstep stunned. Finally, Lena spoke, her voice subdued. "I think I might know why we can't find Cap." Meltdown. That's the only word to describe my state of mind. For months, I had been wandering the desert, throwing myself at the undeserving creep, Zach. Now, finally, I understood my true feelings, and it was too late. Up until that moment, no one had dared to speak the awful words out loud, but I couldn't keep them bottled up inside any longer. What if he's dead? That would probably be something else I'd write down and think about. Because in my experience, we know, first of all, that he's not dead because we're the reader and we saw him go off with his grandmother. But why would the author do that would be what I would be thinking about and use my background knowledge to explain. So readers, when you are reading, it is wise to stop and jot periodically through your reading time. Look forward to seeing the work you do. Take care. Bye.